Welcome everybody uh, to our third webinar. We just improve the lighting here. Yeah, that's better. Today we are going to talk about a very important aspect of resilience, which is stress and immunity. But before I do that, just a quick couple of things to open the session. Allow me to share my screen. So as we normally do, let's begin with a short presence practice. I hope many, or at least some of you have been doing the practice regularly and are seeing the benefit of it. So let's just do a 5-minute practice to center ourselves and ground ourselves in today's session. So sit upright in your chairs, feet firmly on the floor, bodies relaxed. Your palms can be facing up or down on your knees, whatever you feel comfortable. The foundation of presence is a relaxed body. So scan your body from the top of your head down to the tips of your toes, relaxing each and every body part one by one, externally as well as internally. Settle into that relaxed state. When your body is relaxed, your attention will automatically go to your breath. Even breath is the first signal of presence. Just watch your breath. As it comes in, your abdomen rises. As it leaves your body, your abdomen will fall. Just observe, just witness your breath. The second signal of presence is a clear, calm, quiet mind. Notice what's running on the screen of your mind. Don't get involved with it. Just observe. And then shut down all those programs, those apps, those scripts, those windows, until your mind is restored to its pristine condition. Clear, calm, quiet. The third signal of presence is an open heart. Bring your attention to your physical heart first. Connect with it and feel it thumping away in your chest, keeping you alive. And then your emotional heart. Open that emotional heart just a crack, and then wider and wider, so that you can feel a heart-to-heart connect with everyone who is on this call. Irrespective of location and distance, our hearts are connected. The fourth signal of presence is your sensitive sonar. Become aware of your 5 senses and send them out into the environment, so that while you are alert and relaxed, you are also receiving the subtlest of signals from all around you through every sense organ. Full context awareness. The fifth signal of presence is your energetic induction. Think of yourself like a tuning fork with its own unique vibration. And as those vibrations engage with the vibrations of everyone else, there is a certain resonance. Everything starts vibrating to the same frequency, just like tuning forks do. I'll call out 3 affirmations. Please repeat them aloud wherever you are. Let's begin. The reality of this moment is that I have nothing to defend. I have nothing to promote. I have nothing to fear. The only reality of this moment is that I am here now. I am here now. Settle into that state of presence. Waking state. Make an intention to hold this state of presence for as long as you can. And equally make the intention to be fully present during this webinar so that you can get the maximum value out of it. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes, rub your palms, back of your palms, bring the circulation back, your arms, your legs, your torso, your back, your head and scalp, your face, eyes, ears, mouth. Welcome back. So thank you for participating in that quick practice. I hope this is something that is familiar and easier for all of you to do. Let's move on. So first of all, I just want to check in on the follow-up activity to our last webinar, which was, if you remember, I had asked every one of you, and you had agreed to thank one person that you are really grateful for. So what I would like to do is, I would like you to look at the chat window in which I'm requesting my colleague Aditya to put in the link to the poll software which we have used before. So if you can please copy and paste that link into your browser, and then I'm going to open that poll. And all those of you who were able to actually call and thank somebody or meet and thank somebody that you really wanted to express, I would like you to capture in the poll, how did that person feel when you called and thanked them? What was their dominant emotion when you called and thanked them? So please, you're welcome to type in that word. Surprised, numb, happy, grateful, overwhelmed. joy, elated, fantastic, hopeful. Okay. Any more responses? Otherwise, I'm going to lock the screen and move on. Light, composed, thanked, guided. Okay, so I'm going to lock the screen here and I'm going to move on to the next one, which is how did you feel? And so can you please capture one word of how you felt after you did this little practice? What was going on for you? Stay on the same screen and type in your one word, please. Emotional, awkward, closure, relief, happy, great. Shavan says good. Okay, any more? Expressing. I think someone has said expressing doesn't come naturally, but that's come as 4 different words. Yeah, go ahead. Okay, I'm going to lock the screen so that we can move on. Thank you for that. I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint now. So those of you who were able to do it, thank you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got a lot out of it. Those of you who were not able to do it, it's not too late. You can do it today or tomorrow or over this weekend. And the reason why I think it's really important for all of us to do this and do this regularly is because gratitude has a direct and a strong connection to immunity. And I'm going to talk a little bit about immunity in this coming session in the next maybe 10 minutes or so. But it's quite important to remember that gratitude has a direct connection to immunity. So if we are able to express our gratitude to ourselves and to others, then we are actually improving our immunity. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to show you a short video. So let me present that and also make sure that I'm sharing computer sound. So have a look.
Stress is everywhere and it's increasing. In fact, it's now so common that we have taken it for granted. We have accepted it as part of our lives. But the funny thing is that we don't have a common definition of what stress is. And the big question is that if we don't understand something, how can we hope to address it effectively? I want to share 5 key principles of stress with you. The first is that stress isn't all bad. There's actually something called good stress. Eustress, it is called. And then, of course, there is the bad stress, what we might call distress. The second principle is about the 5 deadly Ds. You will learn more about them, but the important point here is that you are probably not making the connection between the 5 deadly Ds and the stress. The third principle is about the stress spiral, how it starts, how it accelerates, and then how quickly and easily you can find yourself on that slippery slope to despair, to depression, and to illness. Number 4, stress is called a silent killer for good reason. Firstly, it weakens your immunity, and this can lead to illness. Now, this is not just me speaking. There is a whole science, the science of psychoneuroimmunology, PNI, behind this. Please Google it and you will learn more about it. Also, stress can reduce your productivity at work. If you're stressed, you can feel dull, you can feel lifeless, you can feel demotivated. There can be low engagement and high attrition. Perhaps the most important principle is the 5th principle, which is that stress is multidimensional. In fact, you can feel stress at any one of these 5 levels. You can feel physical stress, stress. Equally important is that you have to address your stressors at all these 5 levels. So far we've talked about stress. Now let's talk about health and well-being. The first thing to remember is that health means wholeness. To be healthy is to be whole. The second is that health is not just the absence of disease. We call it arogya, which means no disease. Real health, true health, means swasthya. Swasthya means to be established in yourself, in your true self. That is the bigger definition of well-being. I want to remind you that stress, the silent killer, is not about managing your time better. That's what most people think. It's actually about managing your energy. The second thing to remember is that there are plenty of things that you can do to minimize your stress and to improve your well-being. So please don't take stress for granted. Please don't give it more importance and more power than you need to.
So what I'd like to do is to give everyone a chance, maybe 30 seconds, to just capture your questions and answers in the Q&A box of the, if you go to the bottom of your screen, of your Zoom screen, you will see the Q&A section. So based upon what you saw in this video about the 5 principles of stress, if you have any questions or if you have any comments, I invite you to please capture them in the Q&A box. I'll give you about a minute to do so while it's still fresh. Please go ahead. No questions yet? Excellent questions. Excellent question. Thank you, Fen. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you, Preeti. Thank you, Sabrina. If anyone else has any questions, let's please capture them before we go forward. We'll come back to these questions. These are all important questions. Thank you, Sulina. And thank you, Chaibut. Excellent questions. Okay, so in my video, I talked about the 5 deadly Ds. Thank you, Guy. I've seen your question in the chat box as well. I'll come back to it. So I want to share a little bit about what these 5 deadly Ds are. You know, these are 5 very significant things that are going on in our society. And as I said in the video, we don't often connect them with stress, but I think you will see that there is a direct connection between stress and these 5 deadly Ds. And what are these 5 deadly Ds? These are big social trends that we are seeing all around the world. The first one, you may be surprised to see, the first D is drinking. If you look at the levels of alcohol consumption around the world, they are increasing steadily, they are increasing rapidly, and they are increasing particularly among women and particularly among youngsters. This does not augur well for the future because the medical and the illness-related health implications of this are very, very, very significant. So the first D is drinking or alcohol. The second D is depression. And as we all know, the levels of depression around us in society are increasing dramatically. It has nothing to do actually with socioeconomic status or levels of development. It seems to be a universal phenomenon. The third is divorce. And we are seeing that relationships and marriages are breaking up at a rate faster and faster. In fact, the more developed the society, in many cases, the higher is the rate of divorce. And this has devastating impacts on the individuals, on the family, on the children, etc. The fourth is debt. We are seeing that our society is basically currently over leveraged, whether it is personal debt or family debt or business debt or even national debt. And this creates a huge amount of stress. Look at what's happening right now when incomes have come down to zero, but the debt burden still has to be managed. I can imagine how much stress there will be. And the last one, and perhaps a very serious one, is that of disease. We are seeing the levels of lifestyle-related chronic diseases like hypertension, cardiovascular disease, diabetes, arthritis, cancer. These are increasing dramatically and steadily. And the important point here is to notice that stress has a role to play. In some cases, stress is the cause. In some cases, stress is the effect. And in many cases, stress is both the cause and the effect. So we are basically on that stress spiral. And unfortunately, it's not taking us in the right direction. It's taking us in the wrong direction. Now, I also talked about stress being multidimensional. And really, the challenge is, we talk about physical stress, we talk about emotional, mental, relational, and spiritual stress. The real question is, if I were to ask all of you, what are your two most important stressors? People would struggle to answer this question because we don't really know. And it's because of that we have actually created this holistic health questionnaire. Because everyone talks about stress, but no one knows how to diagnose it for themselves. And so for those of you who have completed the questionnaire as of this morning, I had 16 people completing the questionnaire, 4 people had it pending, and 30 of you had not started it yet. That's okay, you can do it after this session is over. But I highly recommend it because it will help you to get a snapshot of what your own stressors are likely to be. So before we move on, what I want to do is to ask those who have completed the questionnaire, 16 or maybe a few more have completed the questionnaire. I'd like you to go back to the poll software and I'd like you to go to the next screen, which is based on your HHQ responses and based on what you have seen in your report, what are the top 2 stressors that you want to work with? So out of the 5 choices that you have in front of you, please pick the top 2. It'll be interesting to see what kind of picture emerges for this group. Your responses are anonymous here, so nobody is going to be able to see who has picked what. But I'd like each one of you who has completed the questionnaire to pick your top 2 stressors that you would like to work upon. Please keep going. So if there are 16 people who have completed the questionnaire, oh, it's recording only one, not allowing a second response. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, then you'll have to pick your top one. The link is, Chloe, I'm just putting up the link again. Aditya, can you please type the link in again? Let's give it another minute. For those of you who are still answering, Okay, so I'm going to lock the screen for now. So it's interesting to see that the majority really wants to work on emotional stressors. Let's see what's coming up in the chat. Yes, you can only select one, Shelby. I'm sorry about that. I don't know what happened to the settings. My apologies. So it looks as if emotional stressors and physical stressors account for about 65% of you want to work on that, followed by relational, followed by spiritual, followed by mental. So the question then is, okay, what can I actually do about it? Where are the solutions? So we obviously don't have the time in a 30-minute webinar to cover any solutions whatsoever. But all I will say is that if you go to our website, which I will share the link with you in a moment. There are plenty of options and there are plenty of resources available in all your cities, whether it's Singapore or Jakarta or Bangkok or Taipei or Hong Kong or Sydney or Mumbai or Gurgaon. There are plenty of options available. We have identified what are all the things that you can do. So invite you to go and take the actions that you need to take. But from my standpoint, the number one practice you can continue to do is your presence practice and your gratitude practice. If you're able to do these two things, your presence practice and your gratitude practice, the lotus of gratitude, this will help you enormously to manage your stress and to manage your immunity. So I just want to say a little bit before I close and go to questions about this whole idea of burnout. And the reason why I'm saying it is because the current COVID crisis is such that if the lockdown has been stressful, the coming out of lockdown and getting back to the new state, the new normal, is going to be even more stressful. And there is a great likelihood that the stress will be so great that people will actually burn out. So this is something for us to be really careful and really mindful about. So how is burnout described? You can actually see the definition on the screen. It's emotional and exhaustion due to acute or prolonged stress, right? Where you feel overburdened, overwhelmed, and so on and so on and so on. In the workplace, it's interesting that the WHO, World Health Organization, has now classified burnout as an occupational syndrome. It's not yet a medical condition, but it's called an occupational syndrome, which means it's related to your work. And the characteristics of burnout that you have to watch out for are these three. The first is depleted energy. Remember, I said that stress is not about time, it's about energy. So if you feel depleted on an ongoing basis, that's something to be careful about. If you feel distance or negative or cynical about the job that you're doing, then that is something to be careful about. Obviously, this applies not only to you, but also to your teams. And the third is that if you're noticing that for whatever reason there is reduced professional efficacy, and that has nothing to do with the actual work, it has to do with the approach that you or your team members or your staff is bringing to the work, then you really have to look for burnout. So I just wanted to put this up and tell you that as you go into the next stage coming out of lockdown, you know, the positive side will be that the green shoots will appear, that we will start to connect back with our teams, our clients, our customers, and so on. We will start to feel productive again. But on the other hand, there is the downside that you need to watch and to be careful for. Again, if you would like to diagnose your own stressors, please do take the HHQ. It's always available to you. It's for free. You have the link, and I hope you get the benefit out of it. So for our next week, in our last session, what would I like you to do? I would like you to watch this 17-minute video. I will send the email. I will send the link to you by email as well. But for those of you who want to capture it, just take a screenshot or something. You can do that. It's a video called Tiny Habits. by a gentleman called BJ Fogg. It's an amazing video because it tells you how to actually bring about significant change by changing your tiny habits. So just take a print screen or a picture or on your camera. In any case, I will send you the link by email. So before the next session, what I would like you to do is to watch this video. All right, so I'm going to stop sharing and go back to the questions. Um, So it's already past time. So I'm aware that some of you may have other things that you need to do or what you want to do. So those of you who need to leave the session, you're welcome to do so. I look forward to seeing you next Friday at the same time. But those of you who would like to stay on and hear the answers to some of these wonderful questions, you're welcome to stay on as well. So let me take the questions one by one. Let's see. So Fen has asked the question, can the mind be empowered to overcome stress? It's a great question, Fen. And the answer is yes, partially. And the reason why I say yes is because you can actually train yourself, as we have been doing through things like the presence practice and through mindfulness techniques. And there are many techniques by which the mind can be empowered to overcome stress. But the reason why I said partially is because the mind itself can cause stress for many of us. This is called mental stress. And so if the mind is causing stress, then the mind can't control itself. The mind can't manage itself. So then you have to go to a deeper place than the mind to handle your stress. So the answer to your question is yes, partially. Chloe, how do we intervene in a stress spiral? Great question. Uh, there are some detailed and specific steps that you can take. Obviously, in today's session, I did not have the time to go into it in great detail. But let me say this for the moment, that the number one symptom of stress is disturbed sleep. So if any one of you is facing the challenge of disturbed sleep, either it means that you can't fall asleep very easily, or that once you wake up, you remain awake, or that your sleep itself is, in and out, then that is the number one symptom. So if you want to really break the stress spiral, many people would argue that the first thing that you can do is to help yourself sleep better. So again, there are plenty of ways in which you can do that. There's plenty of good tools and techniques and approaches. Once again, I find personally that if you do the presence practice just before you want to fall asleep, then you'll fall asleep very quickly and very well. But my answer to your question is perhaps you can help yourself sleep better. That might be a way to start breaking the stress spiral. Preeti has asked the question, isn't stress real? How can one detach and say, I will not allow it to eat me up? So yeah, Preeti, this is a good question. Sometimes we are so caught up in what we are feeling that it becomes very hard for us to be able to detach. And which is why we do practices like the presence practice, where we are able to observe ourselves, we are able to witness what is going on, and then we are able to bring the power of our mind or our hearts or all our resources to be able to bear on it. So it's not easy to say, look, how can I detach? But if you practice, if you can really not be so entangled in your emotional state as of now, then it may be possible for you to rise above it, and hopefully it will not eat you up. Mamta has asked the question, when does thought become stressful? Great question, Mamta. Thoughts become stressful when you start getting entangled in your thoughts. Obviously, a thought arises and a thought is a stimulus. But if you get trapped and if you get wrapped up in your thoughts, then you start feeling paralyzed. Then your mind starts buzzing around, and then it's not able to think clearly. It's not able to find solutions. So thought becomes stressful when it is repetitive, when you get immersed in it, and when you can't step away. And that is connected to Preeti's question in a way. How can you detach from your thoughts? So if you can break the pattern, if you can break the trap of being entangled in your thoughts, maybe that is the way to break out of it. How do you break up stress points? Sabrina is asking this question. When you feel stressful, it all comes at once. Yes, this is true that, at the moment when you're feeling stressful, it's hard to identify whether your stress is primarily physical, mental, emotional, relational, or spiritual. So that's the reason why we are trying to give you the opportunity to actually diagnose and see for yourself where your typical stressors come from. So in some cases, for some people, their typical stressors are physical. So once you know that, then you can take certain actions to deal with that. Or for some other people, the primary stress points may be emotional. Then they can take certain actions about those. So the answer to your question is that you may not be able to break up your stressors when you are feeling stressed. You probably have to do that when you're feeling okay, when you're feeling stable, so that you feel less stressed to begin with. Sulina has asked the question, is there a relationship between the types of stress? Can stress in one area lead to stress in another? Yes, absolutely true, Sulina. These 5 stressors are interrelated, interdependent, and in a way it connects back to Sabrina's point. How do you break them up? How do you disentangle them? So this is where you need a good solid diagnostic to be able to do so. And if you then work with that diagnostic, hopefully you will be able to see what is the relationship between the different types of stress. Is it a physical stressor that is leading to an emotional manifestation? Or is it a relational stressor that is causing spiritual stress? You'll be able to see where the relationships are if you have a good diagnostic. Is stress only from our own? This is a question from Chaivut. I assume that, Chaivut, your question is that does stress come from outside as well? I am presuming that that's the question, that's the answer. So yes, there are obviously internal stressors which come from within us, and there are also external stressors which come from outside. So for example, the current crisis or the current stress arising out of the lockdown is not created by us. It's created by an external situation and external circumstance. But how we react to it, how we react to that external stressor or to that external stimulus is entirely up to us. So this is why we say that there is the event and then there is our reaction to the event. So all of us may be subject to the same event, but each one of us will react to that event differently. So even if the stressor is coming from outside, maybe it's coming from another person, or maybe it's coming from a particular situation. Yes, that stressor may be coming from outside, but I invite you to think about how are you reacting to it, and can you manage your reactions so that your stress is reduced. And that leads me very naturally to Jyoti, your question, which is to say, it is all in the head, right? What makes some people better at managing stress than others? It's exactly what I just said to Chaivot, Jyoti, that even if the stimulus is the same, even if the situation is the same, what makes some people better at managing stress than others is that they are aware of and can channelize their own reactions better. And that awareness and that ability to channelize reactions better comes from the state of presence. It doesn't come from anywhere else. So when you say it is all in the head, my response to that is yes, it's partially in the head, but actually it is in your state of presence. If you are present, those people who are present are likely to be able to manage it better than others. So here we go. I've answered the 8 questions. Let me just give a few seconds more if anyone has any further questions to ask. Let me just look at the chat as well. There were a couple of questions in the chat. Let's see. How do you put stress at the back of your mind when there is so much going on? This is a question from Guy Hanton. Guy, good question. I don't think that you can ignore stress, because the truth is that if you put it to the back of your mind, or if you ignore it, or if you bury it, it's going to explode sometime soon. So actually what you have to do is to acknowledge what is stressing you out, and hopefully you can deal with it there and then, rather than to put it away to be dealt with at another time. If you put it away for too long, then that is what leads to compromised immunity and to illness. So my advice to you is deal with it when it happens rather than later. Let's see. There are some questions on the HHQ. Some people are struggling with logins and so on. My request to you is that on the HHQ page, there is a button which says FAQ. So if you're not able to log in, or if you're not able to register, just first please take a look at the FAQs on the page, see if your questions are getting answered. If you're still not able to do it, please send me an email and I will get someone from my team to be able to help you. You should not have this problem. Most people have been able to log in and do it quite easily. So try the FAQ option first, and if that doesn't help, please send me an email. Okay, guys. So that brings me to the end of today's webinar. We still have 22 attendees. Thank you very much for joining, and I hope I've been able to answer the questions. Please watch the video next time around, and look forward to seeing all of you on Friday, next Friday, same time. Bye for now.